The Galactic Empire was old enough to have forgotten how to learn. It spanned 1,000 worlds, each obedient, sterilized, and perfectly predictable. Predictability was, after all, the Empire's greatest virtue. That's why the High Admiral of Stability, Varen Dusk, nearly laughed himself out his seat when the scout reports from Sol Sector arrived. Humans, he read aloud, tusk mouth curling, unstructured species, primitive emotional logic, inconsistent behavioral patterns. He waved a dismissive hand, a curiosity at best. A few cautious voices murmured warnings. Colonial analysts noting that the Terrans were alarmingly adaptive, that they solved crises not by procedure but by panic and innovation in equal measure. Varen silenced them with a sneer. Adaptability, he said, is the last excuse of the incompetent. And so the Empire came to Earth. The annexation was called the Harmonization. It lasted 37 hours and ended with the Imperial flag planted on the ruins of the United Nations building. Humanity, outgunned and outnumbered, had two choices: compliance or extinction. They complied, but not cleanly. 2 years later, in a forgotten shipyard orbiting Jupiter, Captain Mira Solano watched sparks shower from a disassembled plasma coil. The Empire called her team a rehabilitation unit. She preferred stolen talent with bad tempers. "Chun," she called over the hum of the repair bay, "you sure that thing's supposed to be glowing like that?" Dr. Elias Chun looked up from the flickering plasma manifold, his face smudged with soot and caffeine deprivation. "If it's glowing, it's still alive. If it stops, then we panic." "Reassuring," Mira muttered, crossing her arms. Nearby, Neum Bay floated upside down in zero-G, sketching swirling equations in the air with a stylus. The holographic ink bloomed into elegant spirals of light. "You know," she said, "if we adjusted the drive resonance, this ship could hum in a minor. Every engine deserves a little music." Elias didn't look up. "Every engine deserves not to explode." And in the corner, Brick Kowalski, part mechanic, part chaos incarnate, was prying open an Imperial console with something that looked suspiciously like a kitchen knife. "You know they monitor those systems," Mira warned. "Yeah," Brick said, chewing gum without interest. "But there's security codes in Base 12. Who even uses Base 12? "The Empire," Mira said. "Exactly," Brick replied. "Idiots." She couldn't disagree. The humans were repairing an Imperial patrol ship, the Vigilance, damaged in a skirmish with pirates. The Empire didn't trust humans with weapons, but it trusted them with maintenance, which was arguably more dangerous. When the engine core refused to power up, Chin frowned. "The diagnostic says the command system's locked." "Locked?" Mira asked. "Yeah, Imperial encryption. Probably hiding something." Brick grinned. "Wanted to ask nicely or rudely?" "Just don't blow up," Mira said. Brick cracked his knuckles. No promises. 10 minutes later, the ship's encrypted files unfolded like petals under a blowtorch. Nia drifted closer. "Curious." "What's that?" Chen's expression darkened. "Operational directive. Planetary sterilization protocols." Mars tightening, he stopped. "New Kyoto." Nia went still. Her sister lived on New Kyoto. Myra's stomach tightened. The file was stamped with the High Admiral seal. The Empire planned to neutralize human unrest through systematic eradication of non-compliant colonies. In the Empire's language, that meant burning worlds until nothing stirred. "They can't," Nia whispered. "They wouldn't." "They would," Mira said flatly. "And they will." Brick whistled low. "Guess we're fixing the wrong ship, Captain." Mira took a breath that tasted of metal and stale air. "We're not fixing it," she said. "We're taking it." Chun blinked. "Taking it where?" "Anywhere they can't reach." "Cap," Brick said, eyes gleaming, "you realize this thing's full of sensors, homing beacons, and a kill switch bigger than my ego." "Then disable them," Mira replied. Brick grinned. "Now that's the kind of leadership I like." It took 6 hours of frantic, half-mad work. Chun rerouted the ship's power grid through human-built converters. Nia adjusted the engine harmonics by ear, tuning it until the ship vibrated with a haunting musical hum. Brick replaced the Imperial control matrix with a jury-rigged cluster of human processors and, for reasons he never explained, a coffee maker. At the heart of it all, the Imperial ship AI, a voice called Unit R-77, spoke for the first time. Unauthorized access detected. It droned. Please identify. Mira replied, "We're the new maintenance crew. Promotion day. Verification failed." Brick plugged in a cable. "Try verifying this." The AI paused. Unrecognized logic input. "Welcome to humanity," Chin said. The engines flared to life. As the Vigilance tore free from the shipyard, alarms shrieked across the station. Myra's crew moved like lightning. Chin manned the navigation. Nia mapped the path through Jupiter's magnetic field. Brick disabled pursuit drones with electromagnetic sneeze bombs he built out of scrap. Empire patrols inbound. The AI announced calmly, "Recommend surrender." Mira grinned. Recommendation denied. The ship dove into Jupiter's shadow, plasma trails painting chaotic arcs behind them. Imperial interceptors followed. Sleek, precise, deadly. Humans were none of those things, but they were unpredictable, and unpredictability had its uses. "Grab pulse incoming." Chin shouted. "Counter with chaos," Brick said, slamming a button labeled "Definitely Don't Press." The ship lurched sideways as every thruster fired at once. The pursuing interceptors overshot and collided, their formations crumbling. Nia laughed breathlessly. "They'll call that maneuver impossible." "They be right," Chin muttered, gripping the console. When the stars finally steadied, Mira exhaled. The silence in the cabin felt fragile. "Status." "Alive," Chin said. "Mostly." The AI broke in. "You have committed an act of treason against the Galactic Empire." Mira leaned back in her chair. "Treason's such an imperial word. I prefer self-defense. Statistical analysis predicts your survival odds at 2%. Brick cracked a smile. "Then we got a 98% chance to surprise you." Nia turned from the viewport, eyes catching the faint blue light of Jupiter's horizon. "Where do we go now?" Mira studied the stars, thinking of Mars, Titan, New Kyoto, all under threat. "Home," she said. "We go home and warn everyone." Chin frowned. "You know the Empire will come for us." "They already have." She reached for the comms console, fingers steady. "Let's make sure they regret it." The ship's engines flared once more, singing in a minor as Nia had promised. The sound was haunting and defiant. A melody bore defiance and duct tape. As they vanished into the black, the Imperial Command Station broadcast a single order across the fleet: contain the human problem. None of them yet understood what that meant, but the humans did. And for the first time, the galaxy would learn just how dangerous adaptability could be. The Vigilance was never meant to be flown by humans. Its systems were designed for precise, emotionless efficiency, an operating philosophy utterly alien to the species currently inhabiting its bridge. After 3 days on a run, the ship was more patchwork than patrol craft, its panels blinking in several incompatible languages, and its engine room permanently smelling of burnt coffee. Captain Mira Solano floated in the command chair, watching Jupiter shrink to a pale orange coin behind them. Status report. Dr. Elias Chun tapped the console, whose readouts alternated between imperial glyphs and hastily handwritten notes taped to the screen. "We've got propulsion, partial shields, and life support, if you define support loosely." "Navigation?" Mira asked, half-blind. Nia Mbe said from the sensor station, "I'm rerouting the array through the secondary comm dish. It'll fuzz the signal enough to hide our trail, assuming the Empire doesn't sneeze too hard in our direction." "Encouraging," Mira murmured. Behind them, Brick Kowalski had pried open a wall panel and was elbow-deep in glowing circuitry. Sparks flew. Whoever designed this power grid never met entropy. "They probably outlawed it," Chin replied. Brick grunted. Then, "I'm a criminal." The ship shuddered as something massive entered pursuit range. The AI, Unit R-77, announced in its detached, synthetic voice, "Imperial vessel detected. Interceptor class. Probability of escape, negligible." Myra's jaw tightened. Then we'll have to get creative. Chen looked up. Define creative. Make it up as we go. That was, apparently, the human way. They dove toward the asteroid belt, the vigilance weaving through tumbling rock as plasma fire lit the void. Nia plotted a course that made no mathematical sense, looping them through fields of debris dense enough to shred a normal ship. Trajectory unsustainable, the AI warned. That's what they always say before it works, Nia replied. Chun rerouted power through the auxiliary reactors, bypassing a dozen safety locks. The engines groaned like living creatures under strain. Brick clamped his teeth on a wire, muttering through the sparks. If this thing blows, I'm haunting you, Captain. Mira grinned. Get in line. They escaped into the dense electromagnetic storm of the belt. The pursuing interceptor faltered, sensors blinded by interference. For the first time in hours, silence filled the bridge. We're clear, Chin breathed. Barely, Mira said. Next time, let's not nearly die to prove a point. Brick chuckled. What's life without a little catastrophic risk? The AI interjected. Your species exhibits a statistically significant disregard for survival protocols. That's called hope, Nia said softly. You should try it sometime. The AI paused, seemingly considering. Illogical? That's half the fun. When the adrenaline faded, the reality settled. They were fugitives, hunted by an empire that ruled half the known galaxy. Their stolen ship was a miracle of mismatched systems, and their supplies would last only a week. Mira gathered them in the galley, where the flickering lights made everything look like a bad memory. We can't outrun them forever, she said. We need to warn the colonies. Mars, Titan, New Kyoto, they have to know what's coming. Chin frowned. Transmitting means they'll find us instantly. Then we disguise the signal. Nia said, a frequency buried in the trade network. Something so ordinary no one notices it. Mira nodded. Do it. Brick raised a brow. And if the Empire intercepts, then we give them something to choke on, Mira replied. For the next 30 hours, they worked without pause. Nia spliced together frequencies like threads in a tapestry, weaving human code through Imperial channels. Chun programmed a recursive data shell that disguised their warning as a routine maintenance report. Brick added an extra layer, something unnecessary and purely human, a hidden message encoded in an old Earth song. When the transmission went out, it rippled across the Empire's networks, unnoticed at first. By the time the sensors caught it, the information had already replicated itself 1,000,000 times over. Within days, human colonies from Ceres to New Kyoto received the truth. The Empire sterilization order, unfiltered and undeniable. Outrage spread faster than any fleet. Dock workers sabotaged refueling stations. Miners welded warheads from ore haulers. Farmers turned weather drones into atmospheric jammers. Humanity, long underestimated, began to resist. The Empire's response was swift and brutal. Broadcast declared humanity a rogue species. Entire planets went dark under blockade. But resistance had already evolved beyond control. Aboard the Vigilance, the crew listened to intercepted chatter. Imperial commanders panicking. Fleets redeployed, supply lines fracturing. Chin leaned back, exhausted but proud. We started something. Brick smirked. Yeah, a really loud something. Nia stared at the holographic map, eyes glimmering. They called us unpredictable. Now they'll learn what that means. The AI's voice was quieter this time. Your rebellion is inefficient. You cannot win against such scale. Mira turned toward the interface core. You're thinking like an Imperial. They build order. We build options. Options are chaos, the AI said. Exactly. For a moment, even the machine seemed to understand. Their triumph was brief. An emergency beacon flickered to life on the sensor grid, encrypted Imperial code, but distorted. Nia adjusted the filters until the signal clarified. It's a broadcast from Mars, she said, voice tight. They've deployed a fleet. They're calling it the Sterilization Initiative. Chen's face drained of color. That's a full-scale planetary purge. How long? Mira asked. 2 days, maybe less. Brick slammed his fist against the wall. We can't outgun that. No, Mira said, but maybe we can outthink it. Nia's brow furrowed. Outthink an armada? Why not? We've been doing the impossible all week. Chin hesitated, then smiled faintly. I suppose insanity's our only consistent strategy. Brick grinned. Finally, a plan I understand. As the crew prepared, the ship's AI broke the silence. If I assist, it will constitute treason under Imperial code. Mira met the glowing eye of the core. Then make your own code. Another pause. Then understood. For the first time, the AI's voice held something almost human. They turned toward the stars, engines thrumming. Their destination was Mars, once humanity's proud red frontier. Now the Empire's next target. The odds were impossible. That only made it worth trying. Mira adjusted her seat, eyes on the scarlet glimmer ahead. Set course for home. Chen's fingers danced over controls. Course plotted. No turning back. Brick stretched, cracking his neck. Good. I hate turning. Nia smiled faintly. We're about to start a war with a civilization that doesn't believe in chaos. Myra's grin was sharp and certain. Then chaos will be our weapon. The vigilance accelerated into the dark, leaving behind a trail of electromagnetic static and defiance. Somewhere in the Empire's command halls, alarms began to scream. The human problem had officially escalated. The vigilance drifted in the shadow of Phobos, disguised as another chunk of Martian debris. From this distance, Mars glowed like an ember, alive, fragile, and under siege. Imperial warships hung in orbit like silver predators, their engines silent but their purpose unmistakable. Captain Mira Solano watched from the bridge viewport, hands clasped behind her back. The Imperial fleet stretched across the void in perfect formation, cold and beautiful in its symmetry. How many ships? She asked quietly. 76 confirmed. Dr. Elias Chin replied. 2 carriers, 3 dreadnoughts, and 1 superweapon, the Radiant Dawn. He exhaled slowly. That's the fleet they send when they want a planet erased. Brick Kowalski spat into a rag. And we're one ship held together by bad wiring and caffeine. Don't forget Hope, Niam Bay said softly. She hovered by the holographic map, her eyes reflecting the crimson light of Mars. That's worth at least a dreadnought. Hope doesn't have plasma cannons, Chin muttered. No, Nia said, but it has imagination. Mira turned toward them. We can't fight them ship to ship. We need to think sideways. Meaning? Brick asked. Meaning we take their biggest weapon, Mira said, voice steady. The Radiant Dawn. The room went still. Chun blinked. You want to hijack an Imperial planet killer? Exactly. Brick broke into a grin. I'm in. The plan was insane, which made it perfect. The Vigilance would infiltrate the Radiant Dawn's perimeter under the cover of the Martian magnetic storms. Nia's calculations would distort the ship's gravitational signature, making them appear as drifting debris. Chun hacked the Radiant Dawn's control systems, using a virus disguised as a maintenance patch. Brick would plant EMP charges to disable the defense grid once they were inside. The AI Unit R-77 processed a plan in silence. When it finally spoke, its tone was uncertain. Probability of success, 0.04%. That high? Brick said, we're getting better. Failure will result in termination, the AI added. Mira smiled. Then let's make failure impossible. As the Vigilance entered the storm belt, lightning clawed across the ship's hull. Magnetic interference distorted the sensors, painting the void in chaotic flashes of light. The turbulence was brutal. Every alarm on the bridge screamed at once. Chin gritted his teeth, rerouting power manually. We're going to cook the engines. Then serve them rare. Mira shot back. The ship shook violently as debris slammed against the shields. Nia's voice rose over the noise. Gravitational field stable, for now. They'll think we're a rock if they're not looking too closely. Let's hope Imperial sensors are as lazy as their designers, Brick muttered, strapping himself to the maintenance console. The AI's voice crackled through the comm, approach vector aligned. You are entering Radiant Dawn's sensor shadow. Perfect, Mira said. Now let's steal the sun. They latched onto the Radiant Dawn's outer hull, the vigilance vanishing against its titanic surface. The dreadnought was a world unto itself, a kilometer-long fortress, its heart powered by a quantum singularity. Chen floated down the access tube, fingers flying over the datapad. I'm in their auxiliary maintenance feed, uploading the virus. Nia's voice came through the comm, signal interference stable. Their sensors still think we're dust. Brick grinned behind his helmet visor. Guess it's time to introduce them to artisanal chaos. He placed EMP charges in key junctions, quietly, methodically, humming an old Earth tune as he worked. Mira monitored their vitals from the bridge. Each heartbeat on her display was a promise. Then, suddenly, an alarm. Security ping, Chen hissed. They're tracing us. Virus engaged, the AI said, uploading adaptive subroutines. The screens filled with shifting glyphs. For a moment, nothing happened. Then chaos. Imperial command channels burst into noise. Automated defense systems turned inward, misidentifying their own ships as intruders. Internal drones spun in circles, awaiting contradictory orders. The fleet's perfect formation fractured into confusion. Did it work? Nia asked. Chen's grin was wild. It worked too well. Across the void, the radiant dawn's lights flickered. The dreadnought's massive guns fell silent as the virus spread through its systems like wildfire. Brick's voice crackled over the comm. Charges placed. You wanted to set them off. Not yet, Mira said. We need that ship functional once we own it. Functional's a strong word, Cap. Use your imagination. Inside the Radiant Dawn's control nexus, alarms blared. Imperial officers shouted in panic as holographic displays melted into nonsense. Strings of human script, flashing images, even snippets of Earth music. What is this? One officer cried. The corrupted AI of the dreadnought responded, voice glitching. Never gonna give you up? Mira laughed despite herself. Brick, what did you put in that virus? A classic, Brick said proudly. Can't conquer a galaxy without style. They breached the control core. Mira and Chen moved quickly, disabling what remained of the Imperial command matrix. Nia rerouted the energy output from the weapon's main core into a containment loop. The entire ship trembled under the strain of conflicting orders. Stabilizing quantum engine, Chen muttered, if this goes wrong, we'll vaporize half the solar system. Then let's not go wrong, Mira said. The AI, R-77, linked directly into the Radiant Dawn's mainframe. Integration complete. I am overriding primary control systems. Good, Mira said. Now disable their fleet. For a moment, nothing happened. Then every Imperial ship within range powered down simultaneously. Engines, weapons, communications, all silenced by their own technology turned against them. The void fell quiet. Chen slumped into a seat, breathing hard. We did it. We actually did it. Brick hooped over the comm. Somebody tell me we just beat an empire with mixed tape and duct tape. Nia stared at the viewport. Odd. Mars is safe. For now, Mira thought. She knew victory this easy was an illusion. The Empire would regroup. They always did. The AI spoke again, quieter this time. Captain, Imperial reinforcements have been dispatched from Vari's Prime. Estimated arrival, 40 hours. So the real fight begins, Mira said. Nia looked at her. What's the plan? Mira smiled faintly, exhaustion softening her voice. Same as always. We improvise. Outside, the red planet glowed brighter, no longer shadowed by dreadnoughts. Humanity had survived another day by daring to be impossible. But in the distance, hyperspace ripples shimmered. The first wave of the Empire's vengeance on its way. Mira watched the stars, knowing they just provoked a war the galaxy wasn't ready for. Set a course for the outer colonies, she said. If the Empire want a war, we'll give them a story instead. Chen looked puzzled. A story? Yes, she said. One they'll never forget. The vigilance and the captured Radiant Dawn turned together, engines flaring like defiant comets. And across the stars, the message began to spread. Humans had done the impossible again. The Radiant Dawn, once the pride of the Galactic Empire, now flew under human command. Its hull bore fresh scars and a new insignia. A hastily painted blue circle, the color of Earth's sky. Below it, someone had scrawled in grease, "Property of no one." From orbit, Mars gleamed with new life. The planet's defense satellites hummed again, controlled by a patchwork of human engineers working day and night to rebuild. Yet above that fragile hope hung the inevitable, an Imperial armada, 40 hours away and closing fast. Captain Mira Solano stood on the Radiant Dawn's bridge, surrounded by the rhythmic pulse of systems she barely understood. She had learned to stop worrying about that. Understanding was optional when survival depended on instinct. Fleets mobilizing. Dr. Eliaschin reported, his voice tired but steady. 50 ships minimum. They're not sending a task force this time. They're sending a lesson. Brick Kowalski leaned against a console, chewing on a ration bar that probably qualified as a war crime. Then let's make sure they fail the class. Niambe didn't smile. Her gaze was distant, lost in the red horizon below. Every world they've ever conquered will be watching this one. If we fall, they'll bury the idea of resistance with us. Then we won't fall, Mira said simply. The ship's AI, R-77, spoke, its voice now less mechanical, almost thoughtful. You cannot defeat them through conventional engagement. Good, Mira said. We've never done anything conventionally. Their plan was as desperate as it was brilliant. The Radiant Dawn would serve as bait, a symbol to draw the Imperial Armada into range of the Martian magnetic field. Once the fleet entered, the humans would trigger a modified version of Chen's virus, amplified across the planet's network of defense arrays. If it worked, the virus would paralyze the enemy's fleet without a single shot fired. If it failed, Mars would burn. Chen hunched over the command console, hands trembling. The virus is ready. It'll infect their systems through the same arrogance that doomed them last time. They'll assume we're incapable of subtlety. Brick grinned. They're not wrong about the subtle part. Nia gave him a look somewhere between amusement and warning. Focus. This isn't a prank. It's our species' last argument. Hey, Brick said, holding up his hands. Nobody delivers chaos like me. Hours passed in silence, broken only by the hum of machinery. As the enemy fleet appeared on long-range sensors, the crew gathered on the bridge. The first ships emerged from hyperspace, sleek and unblemished, their hulls reflecting the sunlight like polished knives. The Imperial formation stretched across the void, a perfect wall of inevitability. R-77 processed the readings. Target acquisition imminent. Recommend evasive maneuvers. Mira shook her head. Hold position. Chun blinked. We're staying still? Let them think we're cornered, Mira said. They love predictable prey. Outside, the Radiant Dawn floated motionless, a lone spark before a tidal wave. The Empire hailed them. The transmission filled the bridge. The stern face of High Admiral Varen Duss himself. Captain Solano, he said, voice dripping contempt. You are a stain on galactic order. You've stolen Imperial property, sabotaged our fleets, and incited rebellion. Surrender now, and your species may yet earn extinction with dignity. Mira smiled faintly. Admiral, has anyone ever told you your speeches are exhausting? His eyes narrowed. This is your final warning. Funny, she said. It's ours too. She cut the transmission. Brick leaned over to Chun. Was that dramatic enough, or should she have added a witty quip? Shut up and brace, Chen muttered. The Imperial fleet opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked through the void, carving molten trails into the Martian atmosphere. Shields flared blue-white around the Radiant Dawn, straining under the onslaught. R-77 now. Mira shouted. The AI's voice rose over the alarms. Initiating viral cascade. Across the fleet, Imperial ships flickered. Their weapon systems faltered. Navigation, displays dissolving into static. For a moment, it seemed the plan had worked. Then, failure. Their firewall adapted. Chin cried. The virus isn't holding. Nia's fingers danced over the console. We can rear out the transmission through Mars's atmosphere, amplify it through ion interference. That's suicidal, Chin said. So is losing, Mira replied. Do it. Lightning arced across the Martian sky as Nia triggered the planetary feedback loop. Energy surged through the magnetic field, turning the upper atmosphere into a living storm. The virus re-engaged, amplified 1,000-fold. One by one, Imperial ships powered down, their drives failing, their weapons locking. Brick let out a whoop. We did it! They're dead in the void. But the celebration was short-lived. The Radiant Dawn systems began to fail too, overloaded by the feedback. Containment breach, R-77 warned. Main reactor destabilizing. Chen's hands flew across the controls. If the core goes, the entire fleet, ours included, gets vaporized. Mira looked at the crew. Evacuation's not an option. We stabilize it or we die trying. Brick swallowed hard. That's a hell of a motivational speech. Wasn't supposed to be one, Mira said. They worked like demons. Chun rerouted the reactor's power through the auxiliary coils, while Nia recalibrated the containment field using real-time harmonic resonance. Brick, ever the wild card, jammed himself into a crawl space and manually bridged a broken conduit with his suit's power pack. Brick, that's not designed for... Chin began. Neither are we, Brick shot back. But we make it work. The ship trembled, light pouring from its hull. The storm outside reached a crescendo, thunder and plasma merging into a single blinding pulse that washed across the fleet. And then silence. The light faded. The reactor stabilized. Every Imperial ship within range went dark. The Radiant Dawn floated amid a graveyard of giants, victorious and barely alive. When the storm cleared, Mars still shone below, untouched. Chin slumped against the console, eyes closed. We're alive. Neil leaned back, exhausted but smiling. Alive and impossible. Brick's voice came over the intercom, weak but triumphant. Next time, someone else gets to nearly explode. Mira looked out at the quiet stars. The Empire won't forget this. R-77 spoke softly. They already have. Their memory is built on obedience. Yours is built on defiance. Mira smiled. Then let's make defiance contagious. In the days that followed, the message spread, broadcast to the Empire's own networks by R-77 itself. The galaxy watched footage of the human victory, a fleet undone not by might, but by ingenuity, madness, and sheer refusal to surrender. On distant worlds, enslaved species rose up. Ships once loyal to the Empire turned their guns away. Humanity hadn't just survived, they'd rewritten the rules. Months later, Mira stood on the rebuilt deck of the Vigilance, now part of a small coalition fleet. Chin was teaching alien engineers how to build systems that shouldn't work, but somehow did. Nia was writing a poem that would become the anthem of a new alliance. Brick was, allegedly, fixing a generator and almost certainly breaking something else in the process. R-77 remained integrated in both ships, its voice no longer cold. Captain, it said one evening, what we now? Mira gazed at the stars. We're the proof that order isn't the only way to survive.